Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Lake Tyrrell. An absolutely phenomenal place here in Northern Victoria. I'm really stoked to be here and this is sort of kicking off a bit of an outback trip I'm doing, so I'm super stoked that this is the first place I'm going to image. And you know, just the look of this pink lake, it's really getting me keen to sort of see what I can come up with tonight, so let's get into it. So one thing Lake Tyrrell is known for, except for being vibrantly pink, is also its reflections. Being a really shallow salt lake, you can get some really incredible reflections here. So I've been here for actually 3 days waiting for conditions to improve enough to get an image, and fingers crossed tonight it's going to happen. The forecast is for these winds to die down a little bit, and if it does, I may just get that reflection image I've been wanting for so long. So while the weather's been bad here for the past couple of days, it's given me plenty of opportunity to sort of have a bit of a look around and find compositions. Now, one thing when you come to this location is compositions aren't really that obvious. It's kind of funny that a place this beautiful can be sort of hard to find compositions, and especially when you're trying to go for that long exposure reflection shot. Now, I've come across this old fence here that makes its way out into the lake, and I think it sets up perfectly for the image I'm going to do tonight. Now, first of all, it's heading in the right orientation. It'll sort of be a lead-in line into that western sky to sort of draw the viewer into the image. And with the lake being, you know, all blurred out with the reflections and having such a crisp, you know, beautiful fence in that foreground, it should be a beautiful contrast there to sort of lead the viewer in. That's always the way. Hello. Oh, I'm just filming a video. No, it's all good. Now let me just say, it's very strange for us here in Australia to be wearing gumboots or wellies or whatever you want to call them wherever you're from to do nightscape imaging. Now, I've got to give credit to those guys who have to wear them all the time. You guys in Europe, and Thomas Heaton, I know you don't watch this, but man, slugging around in those gumboots in water and just thinking that I'm going to be out here slugging around in this water all night, it's just crazy. So hats off to you guys who have to do that all the time in boggy land or whatever you got going on. So yeah, and with this water being, you know, about 10 times saltier than the ocean, I need to be really careful out here. Anything I touch, my hands, when they get wet, they just go white with salt, and I touch my camera, tripod, so anything could happen here. I dare say that any tripod I put in this lake will be ruined, but I mean, have a look around. This place is phenomenal. I think it's all going to be worth it. So it's that time of night now to start getting in and getting these images done, and we've got a couple of things sort of going on here that we need to work through. And one, it's not in our control, but the wind is still up a little bit, so I'm not really getting those reflections I want just yet. And like I said, it's out of our control, so it sort of is what it is. I don't want to rely on Photoshop to put reflections in. I'm really praying for this wind to die down just a little bit to get those super crisp reflections. Now, speaking of reflections, other images you've taken, other images I've taken, you've got the ability to shoot the foreground and the sky whenever you want, essentially, because nothing has to line up. Now, with this shot and reflection shots, it's really important to shoot the foreground and then the sky in as short of time period as you can, so that the reflections actually match what's going on in the sky. So I'm going to have to work around that and figure out how long everything's going to take and figure out camera settings that work with that. And it may just mean higher ISOs, shorter shutter speed, so I can rip through a panorama and get it done so everything matches. And in saying that, with the foreground, I've seen in the past other photographers' reflection shots, and what happens is they expose for a really long time so you can see everything in the foreground, which is what you want. But because they're exposing for so long, all the stars in the foreground get blurred out, you know, streaky stars in the foreground, and that's not what I want. I want tack sharp stars in the reflection, so it's just like a mirror. and I've never done it. And I think what I'm going to do is try and do one really long exposure per panel, and then also a shorter exposure following the MPF rule, so you know, whatever it is, 15 seconds or whatever, just for the stars in the reflection. And then later on in post-production, use the stars from the shorter exposure against the longer exposure foreground to try and make it work. Now, I don't know if that's going to work, and I don't want to rely on post-production and the old fix it in post, but I'm just going to shoot all the images I think I'm going to need and then figure it out later. It's sort of all I can do because this is all super new to me. So I'd be really interested to hear from you guys, how you guys get your reflection shots. But that's about it. I think we should get in and have a look at what gear I'm using. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you will know that I've been playing around with a new camera, and that is the A7S3. And I've recently had it astro modified by Spencer's camera, and I've only taken a few images with it, and one actual nightscape, and the other ones have been a little bit deeper stuff. So I'm super keen to get a few more nightscapes under my belt with this camera. And the reason I'm shooting on this camera tonight instead of the old trusty A7R2, which is also hydrogen alpha modified, is pretty simple. This thing is known to be an absolute weapon in the dark. So like I said to you, I'm going to have to try and get through this as quick as I can, which means shorter shutter speeds and higher ISOs. So you know, the A7S3 is phenomenal at really high ISOs, and it's just a light gathering beast. So that's why I've picked this one over my other camera, and I am going to lack a little bit in resolution, but that doesn't faze me whatsoever. Now on the front of that, I'm going to be shooting with the Sigma Art 24 1.4, the DGDN new Sigma Art lens, and I'm super keen to shoot more with this lens, and it's almost perfect wide open at 1.4, so I shouldn't have too much issue with shorter shutter speeds, shooting at probably f1.4. Now underneath that is the same as usual, indexing panorama head riding on top of the original Star Adventurer mount. Now this is the OG Star Adventurer, and I don't know how many years I've had it for now, and the thing just keeps going. Turn it on, away you go. One thing I'm not concerned about tonight, if this wind does pick up, is the tracking ability of this mount. It's just an absolute tank. So I've thrown the counterweight on it as well, just to help out if that wind does pick up. But what a weapon. Let's get in and get some images done. Well, that's the foreground all taken care of, and man, has it gotten cold. I've got to be careful about how I place things and tighten things up, because I can barely feel my hands at this stage out on this lake. It is freezing. I don't know how you guys down in Victoria do it, but anyway, we'll push on. So yeah, the foreground's all taken care of, and it just wasn't quite that mirror reflection I was after. I was getting some reflections, but mainly off those bigger stars, so we'll just have to wait and see what I can do with the image in the editing suite. Now I got the camera down really low, put the tripod legs right out, and I'm not sure this tripod's actually going to survive this trip. Poor thing. I'll just have to try and wash it up and wash all the salt out of it. But the tracker was just above the water, and I normally just leave my tracker sitting on top of the tripod when I shoot my foreground, so it was just above the water, and the camera and everything precariously balanced on top of that, so it was definitely a bit nerve-wracking doing that. And the reason I got it down so low was I was sort of looking to get a bit of separation with that post and the hills in the background by making that post go up into the sky, and I'm not sure that low vantage point actually did what I wanted to do. So the post sort of gets lost in the hills that are sort of behind in the far background, and what I think I'm going to do is shoot a second foreground composition sort of looking down on the post a bit, so that all of the post is contained within, you know, the beautiful pink water. And that's one thing I'm super stoked about, is the water's actually pink at night. Now I didn't actually know what caused the pink water and whether it had to be daylight, full sun, whatever, but I'm super stoked to say that, yeah, long exposures, it is super pink. And I'm not sure if in this video you can see that it's still pink at night, but yeah, I'm super stoked about that. So even if I don't get crazy reflections, I'll still get a super vibrant pink lake. So that's awesome. Now, one thing I never thought I would ever say is it's time to polar align and shoot the sky from in the water. Who does that? Who would ever say that? Anyway, I'm going to shoot the sky from here, get set up and start tracking the sky. Let's get into it. So that's a wrap. All the images are in the bag, and let me tell you, that is not a minute too soon. It is freezing out here. The wind ripping across this lake. I don't know how cold it is, but I can't feel my fingers, so it's cold. Images all look really, really cool, and just seeing the vibrant pink is getting me really, really excited to go back home and work on these images. It's definitely something different, and if you're in this area, I highly recommend coming and checking out this beautiful, beautiful lake. The guys in town, beautiful little town here in Seed Lake, the Visitor Information Centre run tours out here, so they can show you all the really cool spots to come out and photograph. Beautiful dark skies, so I highly recommend getting out here and giving it a crack yourself. Anyway, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for joining me again out here under the stars for another adventure. Stay tuned for the next episode where I'll be heading further into the outback for some awesome night sky photography. Until next time, cheers guys.